Hey there, everybody. Now, it's been a while since I've made a video about my visions. Part of that is because it's kind of hard to explain it sometimes. But since then, I've done another couple new playlists. One for my music, another one for my pictures and my life. I just figured since I'm gonna share so much about my life, I might as well take you through my photo album right here. And as you see, I've got picture set up to share about my first year in Denver. But before we go on to that, I'd really like to get back to my visions and share about what all happened there before I left the Florida Keys. Now, if you're not familiar with this conversation, this is part of my playlist called the JodyVision, where I've been sharing about going into visionary state, how Bill Leeb was brought to my attention in this way, as well as a few other things along those lines. Now, in my last video on this, I brought it to the point where I first took an interest in Bill Leeb in real life by remembering him from my visions. Now, what prompted that memory was when my father brought me a copy of Sideline, and that was when this album came out. So that article was promoting Tactical Neural Implant. Unfortunately, the only thing I've got left from that magazine is this one picture. I just thought it was a nice shot. I thought I'd save that to commemorate this part of my life. Now, that is a very memorable part of my life, just for the fact that I had just turned 18, and I had 1 year of high school left to go. And so that places me at about the late summer of '93. So Tactical Neural Implant was one of my favorite albums, and so that was one that came out when I was in 11th grade. Now, I figured I was about the only person in Key West High School who knew anything about industrial music. And then my buddy Janet showed up that year, and we made friends because I was wearing a Skinny Puppy t-shirt that I'd gotten from going to their show the year before. So that's when I started to dressing like this. That's when I was starting to realize I'm into industrial music and all that. See, I got my psychic cross there. So I'm thinking, I want to get in the music business and make this kind of music. I'm in the instructor program there at the Taekwondo school. But I was still really hooked on New Order quite a bit at that time, even though I was listening to a lot of electronic industrial music. But I was really disappointed in the last thing they did, so I think I was about ready for something new. And so it was the perfect time for me to start thinking about, what Bill Leeb is doing, because right here, this would have been the best album he's done as Frontline Assembly. Plus he had a number of other side projects where he was doing, his version of techno music. And so I really liked that era of his career. I was listening to that quite a bit. And so, when I remember my dad handed me that magazine, and I was pretty sure he said something like, "Isn't that your little friend from down the street?" And so when he said that, of course, I was thinking, boy, I sure hope so, because I could really use a friend like that. But thing is looking at the magazine, as I had mentioned, it seemed like Bill was a little too old to be Billy and seemed to have the wrong hair color. But thing is, I did at that time, and to this day, clearly remember Frontline Assembly being brought up to me as early as 1982. Now, 1982. Now, this is Christmas of '81, our first Christmas in the Florida Keys. I'm 6 years old. And this is shortly before I would meet Billy in my visions. Now, we had no way of knowing who Bill Leeb or Frontline Assembly was until 1987, the year I turned 12. Okay, so took a while. But I do clearly remember my parents taking me over to Rosie and Howard's house. Actually, I made this cheesy little map showing you where I grew up at. Check it out. We lived over here at 52 Golf Drive. So this is Big Coppic Key. This is the highway going into Key West. So you go over here to First Avenue, right? First Avenue to E Avenue. Anyways, that's where Billy lived. And it's kind of neat because this neighborhood is the musical notes. So you have G Avenue, which goes off the map here, but you have F on down through A. You've got 1st Street through 4th Street, so it's kind of neat. Another really neat coincidence, okay? Anyways, I clearly remember when my parents took me over to Rosie and Howard's to meet Billy. I heard Rosie explaining to my parents how Billy came here by a form of time travel to meet his future wife. It's going to be a famous rock star known as Bill Leeb someday, so we need to keep an eye out for Frontline Assembly. Now, thing is, the very next time I went over there, I met Billy, and we went outside to play, and I did my very best to draw a picture of him. I'm sure it's not accurate, but you know, he told me himself in that vision, and I clearly remembered at that point, and to this day, Billy told me, you know, when we grow up, we're going to be playing in a band together, and we're going to be married. Now, he said by the time I meet him, again, he'll already be famous. He'll be known as Bill Leeb. The band will be called Frontline Assembly. And this is going to be a type of electronic music. This would be the type of a music that my father listens to. So, you know, not to mention, he would always say, don't forget who I am or you may never see me again, right? Well, here's the thing. We moved over here to D Avenue. I'd say about 88ers, like 88. So like, you know, after we started listening to Frontline Assembly, I quit seeing Billy, but I would still walk past his house anytime I needed to get to the gas station or over to my grandma's house. See, my grandma lived at the end of the canal, so that goes out to the Gulf of Mexico. Anyways, this is where I grew up at, and so, you know, I actually had to catch the bus over here for a while. This is where Billy and I had my first fist fight ever, and I wasn't sure if we were still friends, and so, yeah, there's a lot to it, you know, it's very complicated, and that's why I'm going through this. Anywho, having to walk past this house all the time helped me to remember Billy, and so, yeah, I used to think, you know, I sure hope I find Billy again and all that stuff, so, you know, when we got to that point where my dad gave me the magazine and all that stuff, I was just like, you know what, I think this is Billy. I was pretty sure this is definitely him because I was remembering all that pretty good, and I just felt like I kind of doubted my memory for a while because, you know, ever since we started listening to Frontline Assembly, I always thought, you know, didn't Billy say he was going to name his band Frontline Assembly? So anyhow, what was I going to say about that? So, yeah, anyways, so here I am. I'm just like really happy to realize that, okay, I found Billy. But again, you know, I'm thinking, I don't see how, you know, he'd be interested in me at this point because he's so far along in his career and he's so advanced in his music. I don't see how I could be helpful to him as a bandmate. You know, I could play the keyboard, but I didn't know none of that, you know, fancy synthesizer stuff, right? Anyways, the other thing crossed my mind is, oh, it's been an awfully long time. For all we know, he's probably married with kids, right? But then again, I'm looking at this picture here thinking, you know, maybe he's a lot older than I thought he was, and I'm just thinking, you know, he just seems like a, you know, more stoic and intelligent, an intellectual type of person, right? And here I am, you know, I'm just kind of like, you know, I like to clown around, and I feel like I'm probably a lot younger than him, so he's probably just going to think I'm annoying, so I just don't get it. But at the same time, I was still pretty sure I found the right person, okay? So I was pretty sure I found the right person. And again, just thought this is too good to be true. So I did take into consideration, maybe it was just my imagination. But then I thought, nah, I remember Billy. It was real, all right. But then I started thinking, well, maybe it was just a very strong prophetic dream. Then I realized, no, not even that. It's way too real. But the thing is, it's shortly before this moment, sometime before this, I had read up on the visionary state. And the article there said that, you know, when we go in a visionary state, sometimes we don't even know it until much later when we find out. So I thought, hey, you know, maybe I only ever knew Billy in the visionary state. So I was ready to accept that I probably only knew him in the visionary state. And that even then, it could still be a good indication to reach out to Bill. But I was still scared that, like, okay, if I write to Bill and he doesn't know who I am, and he's probably going to think I'm crazy and it's going to be really embarrassing. So I held off on doing that for another 5 years. Now, it took a lot of different little things to get me to finally write him, okay? And so, So I think it's kind of ironic that it's when the album Tactical Neural Implant comes out that my visions start to take effect, and I start to think, hey, maybe I should do this. But then, because if you think about what I've been trying to explain, it's right there in the album title, Tactical Neural Implant. Now, other than that, I don't really see any songs on there that stand out, you know, in the way of these visions. Other than that, you know, whatever Bill writes about, you know, it's definitely stuff that's on my mind, you know, and maybe stuff, you know, my dad really loved Bill Leeb, you know, probably stuff on his mind. So, you know, we love what he's talking about, but like anything that I could directly relate to would be, say, off of the single for The Blade. On the song Laughing Pain, right at the beginning there, there's a sample from the movie Total Recall, where it goes, need a new childhood? We can fix it. And so that's kind of neat, because what's happening is, you know, these are people living in the future, where they go to this the center that gives people memory implants. So that way they feel that they've been gone for a very long time, and they've been on some kind of an adventure or a vacation or whatever you want, you know. And in reality, you didn't go no place, right? So in my case, there was no technology or anything cool. It's just me going into visionary state, you know. So but you know, if you think about it, it's like you know, I've had like these sort of false memories placed throughout my life experience, kind of making me think I've known Bill Leeb. And the intelligence behind these visions seems to be very careful and tactical, you know, in the way that they're doing this, very well planned out or something. Just it's really sneaky and delicate. So like that's why I think it's interesting. So it's like I've had these sort of false memories implanted in a very tactical way. So anyways, that's why I realized the other day, hey, you know, think about it. That is a colorful coincidence in itself. So anyways, just for fun, let me share this blade. Boom. Now, as I'd mentioned earlier, it was Rosie and Howard that were keeping Billy in my vision. Well, I have another video in my martial arts list. I call it a fat old black belt because I used to train pretty much a lot, enough to get a black belt, right? But not as much lately. So, and just I would like to work on that playlist a little more. I do have one in there called the weapons I've inherited. So I showed you some of the weapons Howard made from hardwood. I just discovered this nice blade in storage that he made, and I don't have anything like this. I'm just like, wow, this is a really well made, it's like between being a knife and a sword. And by the way, I do have some training, so I am in the process of training to move this blade. Right, so anyways, just for fun, it's interesting how things have come full circle, you know, in the sense that I've known Rosie and Howard in person, and to the extent that I'm sitting here in Montana, but I'm still kind of trying to sort out the stuff with Bill Leeb, you know, like, so it turns out, you know, Bill Leeb's been married to the same person for a very long time, except for a small break, and this has been a big part of the reason we haven't been able to make the connection. However, I've tried to explore, like, you know, all these other reasons, like, hey, maybe we're not supposed to be married, maybe it's just to remind me to stay interested in music, or maybe just add further confirmation to some of the subject matter in Bill's music, you know, because it's all stuff I like to think about. Well, anyways, I thought I'd share this piece, and I probably need to go over a couple more things before we move on to what happened my first year in Denver. So until then, have fun. We'll talk soon.